Ken Doherty, the darling of Dublin, the tactical master, one of Ireland's greatest ever sportsmen, joins us live via the internet through Zoom with a nice floral background I see there, Ken.
Oh, yeah. That was my wife's choice, not mine. I just want to make that perfectly clear.
Is that your new snooker cue case? Is going to be covered in the floral print?
Yeah. Actually, it's not a bad idea, actually. I don't know whether we've got any rolls of this wallpaper up in the attic. We might do. Might make a waistcoat out of it.
How are you getting on through these COVID crazy times?
Oh, it's hard. It's hard work, isn't it? It really is. I mean, it's tough. The snooker clubs are closed. I can't play snooker. Can't play golf. It's just it's a bit of a night. We should be actually the worst of all is that the World Championship should be on right now. And I know they've been showing a lot of the old matches on the TV and now, but we should be in Sheffield now. And commentating and watching it all unfold, and of course the final would have been this Monday coming. Yes. So it's the first time in the 40-year history that it hasn't been played around this time. But hopefully, fingers crossed, that they have a possible opening at the end of July when the Olympics was supposed to be held in July, the last week of July, first week of August. So there's a window there of opportunity that the BBC have held now for the World Championship. So
hold on, you froze there, Ken. It should come back in a second.
No, that remains to be seen over the next couple of months. But okay,
you're back there. Sorry.
Yeah. So whether they play with crowds or without crowds, that remains to be seen. But at least it looks like it's going to go ahead anyway.
Well, that's a bit of good news. It does make you miss it more now. Obviously, I'm a big fan of snooker myself, and I have been all my life. And because it's not on now, it's like I'm not getting that yearly fix of snooker, and it's making me miss it even more. So I can only imagine for somebody like you who it nearly is still your whole life. It must be crazy for you going your whole life.
It's terrible. Yeah, because you meet up with all the other guys that you work with in the BBC, the players as well, all the staff, and like for 17 days you're there in Sheffield. It's a great. It's sort of that couple of weeks in the calendar every year that you really look forward to, And Sheffield's a great city as well. It's a great host to the snooker. So we're missing all that. And
is there anything you're doing?
The excitement of it,
Is there anything you're doing in the meantime? Has it brought any like impromptu programs or anything that you're getting involved in at the minute, or is it all just stopped?
No, not really. I mean, we've been doing a few Instagram sort of chats with a couple of the lads. I did one with Stephen Hendry the other day. And I did one with Dennis Taylor last week. That was good fun. And I'm going to do one maybe with Steve Davis next week.
Oh, so, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, just a few live chats over the Instagram. But yeah, I think everybody's in the same boat. They all miss it, But I think we're all sort of, hoping that everything will be okay for July, and hoping that they'll be able to have crowds in there rather than behind closed doors. Because any sport behind closed doors, it doesn't have the same feel, like particularly the Crucible, where the crowds are so close to you.
Yeah.
That creates the atmosphere and the tension. And
one of the main reasons I got into snooker as a kid was the interaction with the players and the audience. Do you know them little moments that may only happen like one for 5 minutes in a whole match, where it's just a funny moment and there's a moment of confusion with the referee and the players are kind of having the banter and the audience are having a laugh. I think that's especially important to snooker.
It is. Yeah, I think so. I think anything like that, because it's it's a serious business at the end of the day. But when they can have a little bit of a laugh and a joke and a little bit of banter and a bit of sort of interaction with the crowd as well, I think that's very, very important. For people watching, for people in the audience, and even to relax the players a little bit.
Yeah. And I was going to leave it till later to have a chat about, but we're kind of talking about it now. So just about your commentary and stuff that you're doing in BBC, I really enjoy it. And I love when you're commentating specifically. Now, not just because I'm a fan of yourself years, but you bring a bit of humor to it in your commentary, which I like. And my dad's the same. He has certain commentators. He's the one who got me into snooker, and he has certain commentators that he doesn't like as much. But like when you're on, because like Ken's gonna have a bit of a laugh now. How you can tell, you can tell you're enjoying it. How strict is it in that commentary box when it comes to having a laugh and having
I think no. I mean, there's no restrictions on you per se. I think it's just that I think there's a time and a place for it. You know, that where something can happen and you can have a little bit of a laugh and a little bit of joke just to lighten the sort of mood sometimes, you know. But you have to be careful where to pick them and place it, you know, because it can't be when the guy is obviously down on the shot or when it's a really sort of tense moment. So but at the same time, don't forget there are plenty of people, you know, watching it on TV and they're listening to you and you're trying to explain stuff, and they like to hear, just like as you said, you like to hear a little bit of banter, a little sort of cheeky quip here or there, you know, or a little story it might be.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to engage, you're engaging the viewer and the listener, you know, and bringing them into trying to engage them into what exactly has happened here, and then, you know, lighten the mood every now and again, because it can become, you don't want it too serious all the time, so you want to just be yourself, you know. I think Dennis Taylor does that very well. John Virgo does it very well. And, you know, anytime if I get a chance to do it, if I can, I'll try it myself. Like, you know.
You're fantastic. You're fantastic at it. And it's great to see you still being involved fully in snooker. You know what I mean? Everybody still gets their Ken Doherty fix in the commentary box as well as on the table. So that's a good thing. And also when you talk about it in that way, it's kind of a bit like a podcast in a way, because also commentating on the sport, but there's a lot of the times where it's you and the other commentator sort of going on tangents, you know what I mean, and having little interactions with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's important as well, where, you know, we'll tell a story about something that might have happened at the World Championships, you know, like a few years ago. Like John Virgo might recant a story, or, you know, Dennis Taylor might, or one of the other, John Parrott might recant a story, or Steve Davis, and then you sort of then you might recant a story of something that happened very, very similar, you know, whether it be in the amateur days or the professional days. But everybody has their own stories or funny moments, like, you know. So it's nice to engage the viewer, the listener, in some of those stories as well. I think they enjoy it as much as we enjoy telling them, you know.
And how was it for you being, you know, looking up at the commentary box all the time? And how did that feel to be up in the commentary box looking down? Like, what were you nervous to do that, or was there any
I think I was probably starting off. I think you're always a little bit nervous. You're a little bit scared of maybe upsetting some of the players that you play with, you know, and they might get a bit offended by, you know, you call them out on a shot that they've missed, or a shot that you think they should have played and they didn't, you know. You'd never call a player out for missing a shot, because we've all missed shots, you know. But you can sometimes call a player out if he's made the wrong choice of shot, you know, which can be crucial as well. So I was a little bit sort of wary of doing that. But I suppose that as you go on, you think, well, look, you have to be honest what way you would see it yourself, you know. And I think if you're not honest yourself, or give your own honest opinion, then I think you're cheating as well as cheating the people who are listening. You know what I mean? So now, whether you're right or wrong, or people agree with you or not, but I think you have to give your own honest opinion of how you see the shot, or how you think you should have played the shot. But I might have a different opinion to Stephen Hendry or Dennis Taylor or Steve Davis. You know what I mean? And I think that's the beauty. It's like football. You know, everybody has an opinion about their team, or the way they play, or who's the best team, or whatever. But I think as long as we all have our own opinions, and we can always be our own individuals, you know.
Have you ever put your foot in it, in the commentary box?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, yeah, I did. I tell you what I did. Once Rory McLeod was playing, and I think it was my biggest faux pas. That Rory McLeod was from, like, he's a West Indian sort of descent, you know.
Mm-hmm.
An English lad, good player. He's playing in the World Championships, and I'm in the commentary box with Willie Thorne, you know. And of course, when you're in the box with Willie Thorne, you got to be careful of the name Willie, like, you know what I mean, as you can imagine, you know. So anyway, Rory is looking at this black into a corner pocket, and I picked up the microphone, I pressed the red button, and I'm live to the nation, and I go, well, Rory McLeod, he's got a tough black Willie. That's not a good start, you know. And Willie, I look at Willie and he's shaking his head. He's going, no. And I said, yeah, and you know, he's got a tough black Willie, and it looks very, very hard, you know. And Willie is creasing up in the commentary box beside me. And you know when you've said something and you're trying to dig yourself out of it. I finished up by saying, yeah, he's got a tough black Willie and it looks very hard, but I think it just about squeezes into the corner pocket.
Oh, you couldn't make that up if you tried.
I know. That was one of the worst ones, you know. I have come out with another classic, which was I think he I can't remember who was playing now, but I said something about a player. Well, he's got an opportunity here. He's got to grab the ball by the scruff of the neck.
I think I heard that one.
Instead of saying grab the bull by the horns here, he's got to grab the bull by the scruff of the neck.
But that's one way of doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant stuff. You couldn't write that. And when you said that about the popping the black, did you instantly realize like, was it one of them moments where you get that sinking feeling in your stomach and you're like, oh bollocks, or were you just like, try play it cool? How did you?
I just kept digging and digging, you know, and it was making things worse. But that's the biggest faux pas that I made. But they've all made them, you know. I mean, there's been some classics, like, you know.
There have been, and that's the joy of it.
Yeah, John Virgo's best one was. It was a morning match, Max Selby against Marco Phil. It was the semi-finals of the World Championship a few years ago. And it was a Saturday morning, very first session. And in the 40-year history it was at the time, they played the longest frame. You know, it was 78 minutes, you know. And I think it was the second frame of the session. And I think the fourth or the fifth frame was 68 minutes, which is the second longest frame in the history of the World Championship. And John Virgo and Willie Thorne are in the commentary box, you know. And you can imagine the two old boys, the concentration levels had dropped quite considerably because the match was dragging on, you know. It was like nearly 4 hours and they'd only played about 6 frames and they got another 2 frames to go, you know. And Willie Thorne turned to John Virgo. He forgot to press the red button off, which meant that if you don't press the red button off, anything that you say in the commentary box, people can hear it live on the BBC, in their earpieces, in the crowd, you know, and anybody listening online, you know. So Willie put down the microphone, forgot to press the red button off, and John Virgo didn't see the red button on either. And he turned to JB and he said, well, you know, I said, this snooker is absolute rubbish. He says, you know, it's absolute crap, you know. And JB says, well, he goes, I was hoping to watch a bit of racing this afternoon. Now it looks like I might not even see effing match of the day.
Oh, God.
That was a classic, absolute classic. And everybody started laughing in the audience because you can all hear it in their earpieces.
Make sure you don't make the same mistake, Ken.
Oh, that was one of the all-time classics, you know.
Oh my God! Yeah,
and of course, I was ribbing him afterwards. Virgo, I said, John, the next time the cue ball is going near the corner pocket, are you going to say, "Where's the effing cue ball going?"
Oh, brilliant stuff. So, what made you get into snooker? Like, I know you're probably getting asked these questions all the time, but for people who are maybe interested in what I do and they're not as well equipped with snooker as I am, what made you get involved in snooker at such an early age as you've said?
Oh, well, I tell you,
instead of football and all the other main.
I love football. I mean, I love football. I played football in school. I played I was the captain of the Rathmines boys team, you know, and I love football. I mean, football was really was my first love when I was a kid, you know. But when I saw Alex Higgins play on Pot Black when I was about 8 years of age, I just wanted to play snooker, you know. I asked Santa for a small little snooker table in Kew, and I got it. It was at the end of my bunk bed, you know, on a Christmas morning. That would have been 1977. The snooker would only come on the TV for us once a week, the Pot Black, once a week during the year, you know, during the season. It was on every Thursday night. It was only 2 frames being played. It was condensed into a half-an-hour program.
Would you watch it on your own, or would you watch it with the family?
I was watching it with my dad. My dad loved the snooker, and he introduced me to it, you know. He loved Ray Reardon. And when I saw Alex Higgins buzzing around the table, potting balls, the fact that he was Irish and he used to wear the 4-leaf clover and everything like that, I was absolutely mesmerised. And from then on, I just loved snooker. I kept playing football every day, but I used to put that little table on our dining table or on the floor. And of course, there was a couple of snooker clubs in Ranelagh at the time, Jason's being the one I used to go to most of the time. And from then on, it was on my doorstep, and I was absolutely hooked, you know. And when Higgins won the World Championship a few years later in 1982, I thought it was one of the greatest moments in sport of all time, and I was absolutely, I was completely hooked, you know.
Yeah, mine would have been the exact same towards you, except I didn't become a professional and win loads of money. So, yeah, I would have been the exact same towards you.
Yeah.
So I kind of got fixated with snooker and obsessed with it. Like kind of nearly around the same age as yourself, I would have got a toy table, and then when I was about 11 or 12, or 10 even, I would have started, you know, bumming my way into the snooker hall and trying to get a few quid out my ma every day to play an hour of snooker on the table, and sometimes even cleaning the local snooker hall, the Classics, where I played in Finglas.
Oh yeah, in Finglas,
yeah. Sometimes even cleaning the tables or doing the weeds to get €20 off Rocco, who will probably be watching this podcast because he's a big fan of yourself. So, but I kind of
I used to do I exactly. I mean, I can relate to that, because when I started going into Jason's first, I mean, I was only allowed in on a Sunday with my brother initially. And then, like, when I got to about 10 or 11, I used to be able to, the bus would stop in Ranelagh from Western Row. My school bag would go underneath the snooker table in Jason's. And then I'd sweep the floor, I'd empty the ashtrays just for like a free
the ashtrays,
game. Yeah, I'd empty the ashtrays, sweep the floor, do a bit of cleaning for the manager, and then he'd give me a free game of pool or snooker, you know. And that's how exactly I started, you know.
Why do you think you got so fixated though, and obsessed? Like, because obviously when I was playing, I got obsessed, but not to the extent of you did. When what made you, what do you think makes you different to, like, because a lot of kids would have been into snooker at the time.
It's a good question, because I think the fact that, like any sport, when you take it up, if you feel like, you know, you're sort of improving or you're getting better, you just want to go back in. Like you make a 20 break, you want to go back in and see, can you beat 20 or make a 30 break and so on, you know. And for me, I took it up naturally pretty well, you know. I needed like one of those old biscuit tins to stand on the full-size table. You know, I used to have to kick it around Jason's. But and then when I started beating some of the older boys, they used to hide the biscuit tin on me. You know what I mean? Make it a bit more difficult for me. But yeah, I used to just, I was just driven. I was determined when I go in. I just wanted to keep learning, to keep trying new things, to keep trying improving. And my break was always the goal, you know, to beat the break, and, you know, get another high break and keep bettering my break. And that was sort of the, you know, that was the carrot that I was always trying to achieve and better all the time, you know. And I just improved, and I learned good basics very, very early, and then just took it up really from then, you know, and just just improved. And once I mean, I was lucky in lots of ways because unlucky in some, but like lucky in others. I mean, Jason's the manager was quite kind to me. You know, he went to the owners and said, "Look, at this kid he's shown a bit of potential. I think if we rather than him." We'll still get him to empty the ashtrays and sweep the floor, but I think instead of just giving him one frame a day, let's give him an hour of snooker a day, you know. And this was when I was only about, I think it was about 12. Let's give him an hour of snooker a day and see how he gets on, you know. And we'll give him a little diary, and he has to write down who he's played and what his high breaks were. Yeah, so I had a little diary of who I played within the hour, and did I make any big breaks, and did I. You know, so I could see improvement, like quite literally, you know.
Fantastic.
And so that's exactly how it started from the age of about 12.
And when did you think to yourself? Do you remember like a light bulb moment or anything like that? Maybe you didn't, where you were like, "Holy shit, this could be."
Well, I
actually
tell
happening.
you, I played my first tournament was the Evening Herald. And it was a junior under 16 tournament. I lost in the final, and I was devastated, like, you know. But the following, about a week or two later, I played in the Irish under 16 boys championship, and that was in your club in Finglas.
Oh, cool.
In the Classic. Noel Diamond, I'll never forget, the owner there of the Classic in Finglas, and that was my only second tournament, and I was 13 years of age. And I ended up winning the under 16 championship. So I was Irish champion.
And you were playing, you would have been
14,
playing 15 and 16-year-olds, would you?
15, 16-year-olds, yeah. 14, 15, 16. I was just turned 14 in September. And I won it in September. And from
Jesus
then,
Christ.
from then on, sorry, I would have just turned 14 in September, but I was 13 when I won it. And from then on, I'd sort of, that was my sort of kickstart, basically, you know, to play first tournament on, you know, in under the RIBSA rules, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, it was just you know, this was like saying, well, I was one of the top juniors by then in the country. So from then on, then I just sort of kicked on from there, you know.
And obviously, it's a long road to the World Championship, to win that, and it's many days, months, and years of you know, constant practice and matches. Did you ever go through times of like, I can't do this, or did you ever get any lows? Because I know snooker takes a lot of mental strength and consistency. Tell us about that, because I had
lots of lows, lots and lots of them. You know, I think one of the biggest ones where there was a couple of things that happened in my life. I lost in the I won the Irish Amateur Championship Senior Championship in 1987, and I was defending it to the guy that I beat in the final. I was in the first round the following year, 1998. 1988, and I lost in the first round, and I thought to myself, I mean, that was a low, because it was actually played in Renly.
God,
and I was in front of my own crowd. I was just too nervous playing in front of my, you know, right on my doorstep. So I thought to myself, I can't stay in Ireland anymore. I have to get away and improve, you know, because I'm only playing the same type of players, you know, and the only way to get any better is to go away and play the best in England and the UK and play in pro-ams and try and make it over there. And then I knew if I couldn't make it, then I'd always come back. And I finished, did my leave, and then I went up to London. Now, I mean, for 2 years I scrimped and scraped and played in pro-ams before I eventually turned pro. But the first year I was only within 1 or 2 matches of actually getting on the tour in 1989, and I fell short. I lost to Dave Harrell 5-3, and that knocked me back a whole year. I mean, that was one of the biggest lows, but it turned out it wasn't a bad thing, because I came back here, won the Irish Amateur Championship 1989, And then that gave me a ticket to go to the World Amateur Championships, which was held in Singapore in 1989. And I ended up winning the World Amateur. So I became World Amateur Champion and World Junior Champion in the same year. So, you know, there was, you know, so it was like peaks and troughs, like all the way. And so I turned pro a year later in 1990. So, but there's, even through the professional career, you'd have highs and lows. And the one thing about snooker, it looks, you know, you would say, yeah, I had a good career and I won the world champ. Yeah, it's fantastic. But I've had a lot of lows along the way, you know, a lot of defeats, a lot of very lonely times, you know, going back to, you know, your apartment after you've been beaten and you've been practicing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Your confidence is very low. You know, you've lost a lot of matches in a row and you don't know where the next win has come from, you know. So it's very, very tough sport. All sports are tough, but it's a very lonely, tough sport.
I can imagine it really is, because, you know, with the likes of football and rugby and other sports, you know, you have your teammates to go through the losses with, and, you know, you can talk about them and kind of go through it together. Whereas you're completely relying on your own mental strength, and you know, I'm sure you don't want to be complaining either to family or friends all the time about your loss or about how you're feeling as well. So you kind of really are on your own in a sense. Now, I know you can probably have the odd complaint to family and stuff and friends, but you can't really bring them on that journey with you either, because that would be unfair.
Well, I mean, they used, I mean, what I used to do, and it was probably the wrong thing to do, but I used to, I mean, when I was living in London at the time, and if I lost a bad match or another first round or something like that, I'd lock myself away in the apartment, you know, for a couple of days. I wouldn't come out, like, you know. I'd go down to the shop, so I wouldn't go near any snooker club. You know, the phone would be off. I wouldn't be ringing home, or I didn't want to talk to anybody. And you just try and, it's a bit like isolation it was then, you know. Without the COVID, that's exactly what it was like. And there was no Netflix then either.
No,
like,
yeah, God, you know,
VHS, like, you know what I mean, if you were lucky. And it was down to the local video shop, Chartbusters or Exhibition or whatever it might be. And
watch the same video 3 times in a row.
Yeah, I'd stay in until I got it out of my head, and then I could. Because I used to feel sometimes, and I don't know why, it was a bit stupid. I used to actually feel I didn't want to go up to see people and then explain how I lost, or I'd be a bit embarrassed more than anything. So I didn't want to see anybody. I just wanted to let the dust settle for a few days and then go back to the club after that. And so I don't think it was the right thing looking back, but that was the way I was just. That's the way
that was your way, though.
Yeah.
You know, there's different ways for everybody, and obviously looking back now, it didn't do you too bad. Maybe you needed that time to just be yourself and just to settle and let it soak in and trying to restart. You know.
Yeah, well, you're trying to work out. You're trying to work out, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? How did I, you know? Because everything was like you're working to a match or a tournament, you know, and you practice and you still get beat, and then you think, you know, you're wondering where the next win is going to come from. You know what I mean? If your confidence is quite low, it's a very lonely place when your confidence is very, very low. It's being shattered, you know. But you just have to dig deep. You have to get back on the practice table and then just try and believe in yourself. Remember some good matches you played, you know, and that sometimes can help you perk yourself up, you know.
It's a very funny sport, and I know it can happen, as I keep referring to football, but just because I'm a football fan. It's a very funny sport, though, because as I can imagine, and as I've listened to a lot of your commentary and all the rest of the lads and lasses' commentaries, of how sometimes a player can be, you know, on top form on the training table and have a nice record behind him, and go onto the table and completely have the worst session of his life, which is just crazy. And even
it's mad.
You heard the interview.
I tell you why.
You heard the interviews.
I tell you why that can happen as well. Sorry, but the way that can happen in snooker, because when your opponent is at the table, it's not like you can tackle him, or, you know, you can hit a backhand. You know, you can hit a volley to, you know, if he's a tennis player, or, you know, it's not like other sports in that respect. Once your opponent's at the table, you have to sit in that chair and wait until he misses. Now, sometimes he might not miss, you know, for 1 frame or 2 frames, or you might make a bad break off and he knocks a long red in and he makes a century, and you're sitting down like for 15, 20 minutes and you haven't potted the ball, and then you get up for the next frame, he knocks another long ball in. That's when the psychology comes in. That's where the demand sort of comes in. And that's where you have to be very, very mentally tough, you know.
Mm-hmm. And going back to the stage of, you know, when you're talking about when you kind of isolate yourself for a couple of days after a heavy loss and you didn't really want to talk to anybody, how did you hit the restart button? Because I know I want to talk both sides, you know, the bad and the good. So how did you pick yourself up from them very low points?
After a few days, you'd sort of your head would be clear, you know, and then you just get back up to the snooker table. After a few days, people had probably forgotten about your loss, so that was a good thing. And you just get back on the practice table, and then you know, let's bang on to the next one, you know, and practice until the next tournament came along, you know. But sometimes, I mean, I you know, I could go like sometimes I might have gone 3 or 4 tournaments losing the first, second round, you know, and it can be quite crushing. But you just got to keep dusting yourself off and get back up on the horse, as they say, you know, and keep believing in yourself, but keep working, you know.
I've heard players talk about when they're really, really on form and they feel like they just can't miss, and literally like they feel like they're not even doing it themselves. Like it's just, what does that feel like? What does that feel like? Because
I don't know. It's been so long ago since I felt it. But yeah, no, you're in sort of automatic mode, as they say, you know, and it's a great feeling because you're in total control of the cue ball. You're in total control of your emotions. You're totally confident in everything that you're doing, and everything seems to be going into the middle of the pocket. It's a beautiful feeling, you know, and when you go into the pack, everything opens up nicely, you know. You get some nice runs of the ball, nice little kisses off reds and stuff like that. And it's a beautiful feeling, yeah. And like everybody goes through that, you know, where you hit it like a purple patch. And no matter what the other guy is going to do, you feel, well, if he misses on 60, I'm going to clear it up with 61. Or if he misses on 67, I'm going to clear it up with 68. So it's a wonderful feeling to have, you know. That's when you're riding the crest of the wave.
Did you ever surprise yourself, Ken, in a match? Now, I know you're known as the comeback king to some people. Yeah. Did you ever surprise yourself, look back and go, how the did I do that?
Yeah, I do. Quite a lot, actually. You know? I mean, I think some of my greatest matches have been in the Crucible, you know. I've had some fantastic matches there. I mean, I've had some great wins. I've had some like hard like losses, like tough ones, you know. The great win was obviously, you know, beating Stephen Hendry in the final. I mean, he hadn't been beaten. He was going for 6 wins in a row, and which was a stretch of like 30 matches if he had won that. If he had beat me, so I stopped him in his 30th match in a row. Which was, when I look back, I think, wow, I mean, that was something. How did I do that? I don't know. And how well I played against him as well. I mean, I beat Matey in 12, but I think that was my greatest match. I think my second greatest match was on the TV yesterday against Paul Hunter.
Was that the comeback one?
That was the comeback, yeah, from 15-9. From 15-9 to beat him.
I think I was watching that through teletext, Ken. I think for some reason, I don't know whether why it was teletext. There was one of your games or matches. I don't know whether it was on telly or not, but for some reason we were checking the results on teletext and we were refreshing. And my dad's just very, you know, classic Dubliner. He was like, he's at the effect. It's gone. Yeah, don't be checking the teletext. And I kept checking the teletext. No, you never know. And he was like, look at the score line or whatever. I think he had money on you or something. But I kept refreshing it, and we just see the frames come up and up and up. And I was like, oh my, he's going to do it here. But then obviously I went on to watch it again. But yeah, what was that like? Sorry, your froze there. I'll come back in a second. Sure.
Well, I mean, I was 15-9 down. I was going into 9 down. I mean, Paul Hunter already won 2 Masters Championships. He was one of the top players in the world at the time, and he was playing sensational snooker. You know, I think it was 9-4 down, 10-6. I went 15-9 down in the end, and we had to play the last session. It was the first of 17. So coming out, I had to technically beat him 8-1, but to win 8 of the 9 frames. And I went out. Look, I wasn't expecting too much. I said, look, just go out. Don't give it to him easy. That's all I was saying to myself. Don't give it to him easy. Make him work. If he's going to beat you, make him work for it, you know? And if you win a couple of frames, you know, you might put a little bit of doubt in the guy's mind. Let's just see what happens. Get out, win that first frame, win the second frame, and then see what happens. And this is the good thing. The flip side of sitting in your chair and waiting for your opponent to miss. When you're at the table, your opponent can do nothing when you're at the table. So that was my sort of philosophy going into that last session. I said, just go out, win the first frame, see what happens, you know? And that's what I did. I won the first 2 frames. The next frame, he's missed the yellow when he was 26 ahead, just the yellow, green, brown, blue, pink, and black. He's 26 ahead. He's missed a straightforward yellow for me to need a snooker. It wobbled. I potted a long yellow, green, brown, blue, pink, and black. And now it was 15-12 instead of 16-11.
Yeah,
you know?
Which is a big difference.
Yeah, huge. And then I won the next frame, and then we go to the interval now, and I've won the first 4 frames. I'm only 15-13 behind now. And I could see how nervous he's getting. It's just snowballing. And when I went back to the dressing room, I was just talking to my mate Mick earlier, and I said, when I went back, because he was reminding me, he said, you know something? He said, you said to me, I can see how nervous he's getting, you know? And I said, if I win this next frame, I think I can beat him, you know? So that's how it's amazing how a match can change very, very quickly. I mean, this guy was playing, I was only holding on to his coattails, you know? He was knocking breaks in left, right, and centre, and he was absolutely flying. And all of a sudden now, he was a shadow of the player he was the day before. And now I was just absolutely dominating the match.
So did you have to sleep on it then? Was it when it was 2 in it then? No. Or was it just
played.
a 4?
It was played out. That 9 frames was played out in one afternoon on a Saturday afternoon, and so there was no time. We only went in for the interval, 4 frames. Back out after 15 minutes.
Okay, yeah, get you, yes.
Yeah, so I'm 15-13, and I win the next frame, 15-14. He wins the next frame to go 16-14.
Was that when he won that frame where you're like, oh?
Yeah. Well, I was saying, well, look, you're in range. You're 2 behind with 3 to play, possibly, you know? The next frame, I think I got a lot of luck. I missed the blue, pink, and black left. I missed the blue into what we call the number 2 black pocket. And it went into the middle pocket, and I only needed the blue. So that was a huge slice of luck. His head went down. I got to 16-15, and the last 2 frames, I dominated, really. You know, he didn't really get much of a chance. So, but I think that was, I think, apart from winning the World Championship, yeah, I think that was, nobody had ever come back from, people have come back from, like Taylor came back from 8-0 down, but nobody, with so few frames to finish, nobody had come back ever at the Crucible. So I think it was one of my best ever, and I think one of the real Crucible classics, you know.
Definitely was. Whether I was watching it through teletext or not.
Yeah, you know, the funny thing about that, when I was watching it yesterday, Jamie, that
is it weird looking back at that stuff?
It was very weird looking back, and it was also, I was a bit teary-eyed because Paul Hunter passed away only 3 years later after that. You know, he died when he was in his prime. He was only 27. He died in 2006. So, you know, that was his last real chance of winning the World Championship. And so it was tinged now. When I look back, it's tinged, even though it was one of my greatest ever matches, it's like tinged with sadness as well, because of what Paul could have achieved had he not been taken because of his diagnosis of cancer.
Yeah, it was
Yeah, it was
heartbreaking.
a shame. It's a terrible shame.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, yeah.
I can remember as a young fella myself and just being like, what? That's shocking stuff, because he kind of had a David Beckham element to him, didn't he? Of
Yeah, he
snooker,
did.
like
Yeah.
he was stylish, he was young, he had the looks, you know, he had everything, and the kind of sexy snooker he played as well.
Yeah.
Was
Well,
amazing.
that was his nickname, wasn't it? The Beckham of the Bays. Like,
Yeah.
he was an incredible talent. You know. In fact, one funny story. When he was playing Fergal O'Brien in the final of the Masters, and he was losing 7-2 to Fergal, first to 10, and they finished the session. They had to come back in the evening session, and in between sessions, he invited his wife back to the hotel, you know, and he thought a little bit of R&R it won't do me any harm, you know. What he called it actually Plan B, you know. If he was 7-2 ahead, she wouldn't have been near the hotel. If he was 7-2 behind, he thought, oh, come on, we'll go back to the hotel together. We'll have a little bit of R&R. And he came out, he made 4 centuries in 6 frames. So the Plan B worked. Like, I don't know what they got up to. Maybe they might have been watching some documentaries.
I'm sure they were just playing checkers. I'm sure.
Yeah. National Geographic, I think they were watching.
Oh God! So, what do you think is more important in snooker, skill or mental strength, or a mix of the two? And have you ever came across a player with extreme talent but didn't have the mental stability to play snooker? I'm very interested in the mental side.
No, I think you do need a little bit of skill, a bit of talent. There's no doubt about that. But as Alex Ferguson would say, you know, talent without hard work and sacrifice wins nothing. You know, and I mean, there's so many talented players here, and also so many talented players here in Ireland and even in England when I was there. And you know, they didn't have the aptitude, and they had the talent, but some of them didn't work hard enough, and then some of them couldn't handle the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, you know, when it got down to the crunch, that you know, sometimes they throw the towel in a little bit too early. You know, they didn't have the stomach for it. You know, but if they had worked a bit harder, they probably would have been okay and been successful. So you need a little bit of talent, but you need a lot of hard work, and most importantly, you need a lot of bottle. You know, to be able to handle the pressure when it's at its height. You know, yeah.
And how did you cope with that? Because I remember watching your games, your matches as a kid and a teenager, and even as an adult, and I would be shaken. Literally, I would be shaken, because obviously I'm very patriotic, and when there's an Irish sportsman, no matter what they're doing, I give them my full support, and I think a lot of Irish people are like that, as you would have experienced. How did you deal with that, especially knowing how patriotical, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, the Irish are?
Yeah.
Like, how did you deal with that?
I think I don't know, it's just something that is just inside you, you know, that when the pressure comes on, I always sort of felt that when the pressure would come on, not to be too scared of it, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I'd be shaking sometimes, you know, before a match or even sometimes during a match. But you'd say, come on, you'd be talking to yourself and say, come on now, just the pressure's going to come on, but just like say, what a result, or what a feeling it is, what an adrenaline buzz it is, that when you can play good when you're shaking, you know, that you can still even hold yourself together. That even sometimes your arm might be shaking, your head might be shaking, you know, but you can't see it. It's not really visible to anybody else, but you can feel it yourself, you know. When you have that cue in your hand and your back arm is going like that, you know. But when you're always telling yourself, look, if you can just hold yourself, what a great victory and what a buzz this will be if you win this game, you know. And it's sort of, you're always talking to yourself when you're a snooker player, even when you're at the table, you know, you're talking to yourself silently upstairs, urging yourself on, like, get this next red, and, you know, get the boy here, make it easy for yourself, keep the pressure on, you know, hold yourself together, you know, all these little things. it's amazing what goes through a player's mind when he's at the table, and even when he's not at the table. But more importantly is belief. You know, you have to believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy. Sometimes the belief goes away from you. You know what I mean? But you have to keep talking to yourself as much as possible to calm yourself and welcome the pressure when it comes on, because you say, you know, it's going to come on, like, you know, at any time. So welcome it and say, you know, I'm ready for you.
So that's how you kind of did it.
Yeah.
Why do you think there hasn't been an Irish person as successful as yourself since your heyday and your victories? Why do you think that is? Because it's kind of, I often ask myself that, because I remember how popular snooker became in Ireland when you won the World Championship. Like, you really did a lot for snooker in Ireland, and I can remember how popular it was just from that bubble of a few years after you won the World Championship. So I was expecting more and more, you know, world champions from Ireland to appear.
Yeah.
But it hasn't really happened, and why do you think that is?
No, it's a good question. I don't know is the answer. You know, you'd expect a lot. There's still a lot of a lot of snooker clubs were open at the time, and there was a lot of people playing, as you were saying, but nobody really sort of kicked on. We had Fergal O'Brien.
Yeah, fantastic player.
Yeah, who won a ranking tournament, was in the top 16. Michael George, who knocking on the door in the top 16 as well when he was playing.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Murphy got up into the top 40, maybe top 30 at one stage. But you're right, nobody has sort of won quite a few tournaments or something like that.
No.
And nobody got to really the latter stage of the World Championship. It's surprising. I think as years went on after that, when clubs sort of start to close down, you know, because of property prices here and stuff like that, when the property price went through the roof, it was hard for a lot of the clubs, a lot of the, you know, premises to stay open just from earning from snooker alone. It wasn't possible, you know. So I think that would have had a lot to do with it as well. So I don't know is the answer. Sometimes you get a player every now and again, and then it might take, you know, 30, 40 years, you know. So we never had one. We never had a world champion before me, but you would think that, you know, it would inspire a lot of younger kids to take up the game. Well, look at if Doherty can do it, I can do it. You know what I'm type of thing.
It definitely did do that, though. That's the thing, you know. It definitely did do that, and that's how I personally got into snooker myself. So, yeah, no, it definitely did do that. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a strange one.
It's
an
interesting one.
I mean, and it's something that I'd love to. I know, you know, Fergal and I have always been good practice partners, good pals. Michael George as well. We still practice with each other, Fergal and I, Michael George and I. But Aaron Hill he's a young lad from Cork. He's going to turn pro this year, and he's the European under-18 and he's the European under-21 champion. So maybe he might be able to carry the flag a little while, and hopefully, because there's nothing more I would love than for another Irishman to come along and represent the country, you know, and because Fergal and I are getting on, we're getting on in our years, you know. So we need somebody else to come along and carry the flag for us, you know.
And what is the state of snooker in Ireland right now? From what you see, is it popular at the minute? Or?
I did a program there, Lucky Break, a few years ago, and I went around the country and, you know, to try and find a young prodigy, you know, and I was very surprised. There was quite a lot of talented kids around, you know, in Dublin and Cork and in the north, you know, and the west as well. And I was very, very surprised. And I thought, well, if these kids stay at it, you know, a few of them have got a chance, you know. And Aaron Hill was actually one of the kids when we went down to Cork. Yeah,
I do remember that program.
Yeah, Lucky Break. It was, and I had great fun doing it. It was on RTA, and it was really great fun doing it. And it was like a 4-part sort of series, but it was really good fun, you know, and trying to coach the lads and give them a bit of advice and take them up to Dublin and take them into my room down to Radisson and have a little coaching sessions with them. It was really, really good, you know, and I thought something had really come out of it. But I saw a lot of talent, but I haven't seen, the only one I've seen now is Aaron Hill, who's actually come out at the other end.
Well, that's good. You know, at least
Yeah,
there's still hope there, and there's still up and coming
yeah,
players,
yeah.
which is
Oh yeah.
which is good to
I think
see.
the passion. I think the passion and the interest is still there for the game. Maybe not like it was when I was starting off,
Hmm.
but because rugby has become so popular now, football has become so popular. Even Gaelic games, the hurling and the football as well is even more.
Do you think as well as the others?
Was
Do you think as well?
17.
Sorry to interrupt you. Do you think as well as the other sports? Do you think technology has an influence? You know, because when we were
Um,
kids, well, I know
yeah,
we like there wasn't we as much PlayStation and as much
yeah. Well, this is. I think this is another part of that as well. That a lot of the kids are, on PlayStations and Xboxes and playing Fortnite or Minecraft, and I mean, it's not only the kids; it's the adults as well.
yeah, yeah.
And I think it's a problem not only in this country but around the world where kids are not getting out to do any form of exercise. They just want to sit in and play PlayStations and not get out at all.
Yeah. Well, you
And
see it. You see it
that's a
around.
growing problem.
You see it around Dublin yourself if you're out on a drive or whatever. The way there used to be, I know it has positives and negatives, but there used to be just gangs of teenagers and kids everywhere, and you see that less and less nowadays. Especially,
Yeah,
I still live in Finglas, and when I was a teenager, I was on the road every day. But you go out now and you don't see it as much.
No,
Football
you don't.
matches
No,
happening
no. I
on
mean,
greens.
I was like you. I was out. If I wasn't in Jason's, I was out on the road kicking a ball or
Yeah,
hitting a
yeah.
tennis ball up against the wall. That's what I was doing. But nowadays, you don't see it as much. So, yeah, I don't mind my son playing a little bit of it, but I have to curtail him to get out and do his stuff. He plays a lot of tennis, so his times and his days are filled up. But during this COVID, when there's no tennis clubs open, it's a bit of a nightmare, to try because he's either playing Fortnite or Minecraft or chatting to his mate. I don't mind him chatting to his mates and having, that he's keeping up with his pals in school and that, that we're keeping up conversation, having a laugh with them. But if you don't get them out, if I don't drag him out to hit balls against the wall or do his running or do his fitness, it's a struggle to get them off the telly.
How old is your boy?
He's 12 now.
Oh, 12. Whoa.
12 now. Yeah. So
Okay.
I mean, he's the age I was when I was starting on my footpad out on my career, basically. And
Crazy.
He's not into snooker, but
I was about to ask that.
Tennis.
Would you like for him to be into snooker? Does that kind of annoy you a little bit?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't actually. No, I mean, I wish he had it tightened up a little bit that he could play. You know what I mean? And he can pick the cue up and hit the ball, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But he sits down after I take him down to practice sometimes, and he'll I'll give him a few little drills to do them and down and get on the, I like to see him play tennis, and I like him to see him. He's got a talent for tennis, and I'd like to see him pursue that. So you can't play two sports, you got to pick one or the other. So I think the one he's chosen is a good sport.
What an opportunity, though, to have Ken Doherty as your dad. If he was interested.
Well, it has its pros and cons, I suppose.
It's probably just
a very tough teacher. I know that.
Yeah. It's probably just that that's dad's thing. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I have two little boys myself, and just
right.
At 6 and I'm just getting mixed up with the ages. Would you believe?
Yeah.
I have two little boys, 6 and 4, or 8 and 4. Sorry, 8 and 4. Alex and Zach, and it's the same thing. Like, we were playing football out in the front garden, and it was literally, "Can I go in now, Dad?" And it's like, I would never have said that to my parents. No. Can I go in now? It was more, can I stay out now? Get me in for dinner was a struggle. But I want to go in and play Fortnite. I'm like, no, you're playing football. Stay out there. Exactly, Play a bit of football for a few
years.
Go back to playing some Fortnite. But I suppose it's just a different world, isn't it? That we live in now.
Yeah, it is, completely, We used to, years ago, like yourself, my mother send me out, get out of the house now, and I don't want to see you until your dinner's ready, you know, and that might be about 6 o'clock, you know what I mean? That was it. She didn't want to see me, didn't want me around the house, dirty in the house, so get out and I'll call you when your dinner's ready, you know, and that was it till 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
But we were happy out, like playing
football.
Or, yeah.
Loved it.
Be coming around chasing me out of the snooker club with a wooden spoon in her hand. Do your homework, you know, and do your record, as they used to say, you know.
So before I let you go, I think we have about 10 minutes left. What snooker players, just out of interest of myself, really, what snooker players would you be closest to the most? Who amongst the lads?
I think my pals are the ones that I work with on the BBC, like, you know, John Virgo, Dennis Taylor, Hendry, John Parrott, Steve Davis, Jimmy White. He doesn't work with us on the BBC, but he'd be a good pal. I'd be pretty close to Jimmy, friends for a long, long time. They of the guys that you would know on the profession, any of the guys that we work with, basically.
What is that?
The Irish lads, Sean Murphy, Fergal O'Brien, Michael George. You know.
Would you all talk?
We have great crack.
Just talk much besides from snooker?
Yeah. John Virgo rang me today. He's living in Spain, you know, and I'd speak to Dennis every now and again.
Tough life.
I rang Jimmy yesterday, and I was doing that Instagram with Stephen the other day. But now I think we started keeping in touch. We all miss, you know, as I said, being in Sheffield. We have great fun together, you know. I mean, when we're there working with the BBC, you know, we're working, we'll you know, have a nice meal in the evening time, have a good old laugh, tell a few stories, tell a few jokes.
It must be just like going out to your mates, is it? When you're
have a few beers in the hotel, have a few beers back in the hotel, you know. And there's always a great crowd back in the hotel, people that you know for years and years, you know. And it's a good. They're like family, you know. They are. They're really like family, you know. And you really you become very, very close, you know.
I don't think I could do a full interview with you without mentioning Ronnie O'Sullivan. What's Ronnie like? I know that's a very tough question.
I've known Ronnie when I first moved over to England. I used to practice with Ronnie, and he was only 12 at the time, you know.
And what age would you been?
I was about 18.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And his dad used to send a taxi for me to go down and practice with him in the house, like, you know. And a funny story about Ronnie, we used to play like it's the 19, then we'd come into his kitchen, he'd have a little bit of lunch ready for me, or his mother would, and then we'd go back out to the garden and play another best of 19. Yeah, he had his own snooker room at the bottom of the garden. So anyway, I was beating him really badly this day, and I think I beat him about 10-2 or 10-3. So he says, I can't play. He says, I can't play after lunch. He says, I've got to do some homework and stuff like that. And I said, I won't be able to play you, you know. I said, yeah, no problem. I said, we'll just have our lunch. He says, call a taxi for me and I'll be on my way, you know. So we called a taxi, got my cue in the car. I forgot my little cloth that I brought with me, you know. So I said, taxi, I said, hold on, I'll just run in and be back in a sec. So I came back in through the front door, down through the kitchen, out into the garden, down the garden path, into the snooker room, and there was Ronnie practicing the line-up, you know, when he was supposed to be doing his homework, you know? So how did
that conversation go?
When people ask me, is Ronnie O'Sullivan, is he really that good? And I said, well, look, I used to beat him in 3 every day. Now, he was only 12 at the time, but it still counts in my book, you know.
It still counts. It definitely still counts.
But no, he's. I mean, even at that age, he was an incredible talent, great player, and he's the most talented player.
When you were playing him, when you were playing him at that age, did you know instantly when you were watching him?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I saw him first when he was only about 10 or 11. But you could tell then he had like a silky smooth cue action. He was making century breaks at 10 years of age, you know, which was like quite incredible. So he was like 5 years ahead of what I was doing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's how good he was. And you know, he had a great temperament, he had great knowledge of the angles for someone so young, and he had a beautiful touch, you know. So he had everything, you know. He was fast, you know. He was exciting to watch, and a right character. He's sort of mercurial type of character as well as personality as well. So you never know what you're going to get with Ronnie. Even now, today, you don't know. You don't know what you're going to get with him. You don't know what sort of personality you're going to meet. You know, he's sometimes really chilled out, and then sometimes he's not. You know, and that's just the way he is. He's had a tough life. There's no doubt about that. But what a talent! What a talent!
What a talent, indeed. I think that's the pull of it, you know. It's just you just don't know what you're going to get with Ronnie O'Sullivan or with a match. It could end in after 2 frames, or he could, you know, rack up 100 breaks in a row. You just sorry, you're froze there
as well.
Sorry, you're froze there.
For the game. Yeah, he's been incredible. He's been incredible for the game as well. You know, I mean, he's got such a following. You know, when he plays, you know, both from TV viewership as well as like attendances. You know, at the tournaments, he's just, you know, he's top of the bus.
Have you ever had any competitive moments with him? Any competitive run-ins in the dressing room? Well, when I lived in that Ilford area and played in that club for 10 years. You know, I mean, some days we wouldn't practice together at all. Like we wouldn't talk to each other. No, we wouldn't talk to each other. You know, we had a right rivalry during those 90s. You know, now he would have learned an awful lot from me, and I would have learned a lot from him, practicing with each other. But one thing I will say is that before the World Championship in '97, we sort of put our differences aside and say, look, let's just practice for this World Championship. And every day for 2 weeks, we played best of 19 or 2 best of 19s every single day. And we went to the World Championship that year as like sharp as tacks, like, you know, and he made the 147 in 5 minutes 20 seconds in the second round, very first round. And I went on to win the championship that year. So I have a lot to be thankful for, you know, for him. But he would have been thankful for me for a lot of the experience that he would have learned from me as well, practicing there, you know. That's a story you don't.
He mightn't admit it. He mightn't admit it.
That's a story you don't quite hear in the BBC, the reels there that you have. So it's interesting that you shared that. I actually never knew that you even tried practice together, stuff like that. Listen, I could literally chat to you all night long, Ken. You're literally one of my childhood heroes.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time to chat to me on this little podcast that I'm starting up. So it's a great honor to have spent the last hour chatting to you. And honestly, I could sit here all night and ask you a million questions. But I know you have a life to live as well. So I will let you live.
No problem. No problem.
Is there anything?
I'm glad we got it. I'm glad we got it done eventually. And anyway, you know.
Yeah, it's great, and I'm sure one day in the future, when this is all done with, we can have a frame of snooker one time, and I can get the trifecta then. You know, I interviewed you audibly on video, and now all that's left to do is have a game of snooker.
Yeah, no problem.
But listen, thanks very much. Is there any people can check you out on Twitter, Ken Doherty on Twitter, if people want to?
At Ken Doherty 1997, I think it is. Instagram at Ken Doherty 1989 on Instagram.
Perfect. Go check out Ken. Say hello. Leave a comment on his social media.
Yeah,
I'm sure he'll try to get back to you if he can.
But nice talking to you, Jamie, and best of luck with your podcast.
Thanks, man. Well, the first 3 episodes have gone great so far, and it's been a pleasure to have yourself. And I'm sure I'll even get some more top quality interviews now that I've got legendary Ken Doherty on my podcast. So thanks very much. Have a great evening, and sure you'll see this on Twitter. You can give it a retweet, and we'll go from there.
We'll do. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
stay safe.
Take care.
I know it's cliche, but stay safe.
You too.
See you later, man. Thank you.